My name is Rebecca Mitchell, 32 years old, and until 6 months ago, I was living what I thought was the American dream. I'm a marketing executive at a mid-sized firm in Boston, where I've worked my way up over the last decade. I met my husband, Daniel, at a charity gala 7 years ago. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed to have the same values as me. He runs, or I should say ran, a financial advisory firm that specialized in helping small businesses manage their investments and retirement plans. I never thought I'd be sitting across from a divorce attorney at 32, clutching a small voice recorder in my trembling hands like it was a lifeline. But here I was, in a sleek downtown office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Boston Harbor, trying to convince my lawyer that I deserved more than the pittance Daniel was offering in our settlement. "Rebecca, I understand you're upset," Martin Goldstein said, leaning forward in his expensive leather chair. He was in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and the kind of confidence that came from decades of handling high-profile divorces. "But you need to understand that Massachusetts is an equitable distribution state. Without concrete evidence of financial misconduct, the court will likely split your marital assets down the middle." I shook my head, feeling the frustration rise in my chest. "Martin, I'm telling you, Daniel has been hiding money. The lifestyle we've been living doesn't match what's in our joint accounts. The vacation home in Cape Cod, the boat, his collection of vintage watches. There's money somewhere he's not disclosing." Martin sighed, the kind of sigh that told me he'd heard this 1,000 times before. "Suspicions aren't evidence, Rebecca. Daniel's lawyers have provided all the financial disclosures required by law. His business valuation checks out according to the forensic accountant we hired. That's because he's good at what he does," I insisted. "He manages money for a living. He knows how to hide it." "Rebecca," Martin's voice softened, which somehow made it worse. "I think you should consider the settlement offer. It's fair given what we can prove. Fighting this will cost you more in legal fees, and there's no guarantee you'll get a better outcome." I felt tears of frustration threatening to spill. 6 months ago, I had discovered text messages on Daniel's phone, intimate conversations with his assistant, Jessica. When confronted, he didn't even try to deny it. Instead, he coldly informed me that he wanted a divorce, and that I should be reasonable about the financial settlement. That was Daniel, always calculating, always in control. "There's something else," I said quietly, placing the small black voice recorder on Martin's immaculate desk. "Something you need to hear." Martin raised an eyebrow, looking at the device skeptically. "What's this?" 3 weeks ago, I went to Daniel's office to collect some personal items I'd left there over the years. His assistant, the one he's been sleeping with, was out to lunch. Daniel was on a call and didn't know I was there. I pressed play, and Daniel's voice filled the room. He was speaking to someone named Richard, discussing what he called the offshore arrangement. "The beauty of the Cayman structure is that it's completely separate from the firm," Daniel's recorded voice explained confidently. "The clients think their money is going into standard investment vehicles, but we're skimming 2% off the top before it even hits the accounts they can see. With the volume we're handling, that's nearly $2 million a year that's untraceable." Martin's eyes widened as the recording continued, with Daniel explaining in detail how he had been defrauding his clients for years, using the money to fund our lifestyle while keeping it hidden from tax authorities and from me. "Jesus Christ," Martin whispered as I stopped the recording. This changes everything." "There's more," I said, my voice steadier now. "Nearly 40 minutes of him detailing exactly how he's been hiding assets, including from me. He mentions specific account numbers, contacts in the Caymans, everything." Martin was already reaching for his phone. "We need to make copies of this immediately. And Rebecca," he looked at me with new respect in his eyes, "we're not settling. Not for a penny less than what you're entitled to. And Daniel has much bigger problems than a divorce now." As I left Martin's office that day, I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. The life I thought I had was built on lies and fraud, but for the first time in months, I felt a sense of power returning. Daniel had underestimated me, thought I would quietly accept whatever crumbs he offered. He was about to learn how wrong he was. That night, as I drove back to the small apartment I'd been renting since moving out of our Beacon Hill brownstone, I realized that this was just the beginning of a battle that would test everything I thought I knew about myself, about justice, and about how far I was willing to go to get what I deserved. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from Martin, and a text that simply read, "Call me ASAP." My stomach tightened as I dialed his number, still in my pajamas, coffee untouched. "Rebecca!" Martin's voice was urgent. "Daniel's lawyers reached out. They want an emergency meeting this afternoon." "They know about the recording?" I asked, my heart racing. "They didn't say specifically, but the timing suggests it. I've made copies and secured the original. I've also consulted with a colleague who specializes in white-collar crime. This goes beyond divorce proceedings now." 4 hours later, I sat beside Martin in a conference room at his firm's offices. The mahogany table between us felt like a battlefield, with Daniel and his legal team on the opposite side. Daniel looked immaculate as always in his tailored navy suit, but there was something different in his eyes, a flicker of uncertainty that I'd never seen before. His lead attorney, James Wilson, spoke first. "We understand that Mrs. Mitchell has come into possession of certain recordings that she believes are relevant to the divorce proceedings." Martin leaned forward. "Not just relevant, Mr. Wilson. Transformative, and potentially of great interest to the SEC, the IRS, and the FBI." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he remained silent, his eyes fixed on me with a mixture of anger and something else. Was it fear? "We're prepared to revisit the settlement terms," Wilson offered smoothly. "Mr. Mitchell is willing to be more generous in light of recent considerations." "More generous?" I couldn't help but laugh, the sound brittle even to my own ears. "You mean he's willing to give me what's actually mine now that he knows I have proof he's been stealing from his clients and hiding assets?" "Rebecca," Daniel finally spoke, his voice carrying that familiar patronizing tone that used to make me doubt myself. "You don't understand the complexities of my business. That recording is being taken out of context." "Really?" I challenged. "Then please, explain the context of skimming 2% off the top and your Cayman structure that's completely separate from the firm. I'd love to hear it." Daniel's face flushed, and Wilson quickly intervened. "We're not here to debate interpretations of private conversations. We're here to resolve this divorce amicably." Martin slid a document across the table. "Here are our new terms. Ms. Mitchell will receive 75% of all marital assets, including those previously undisclosed, full ownership of the Cape Cod property, and $5 million in additional compensation for the emotional distress caused by Mr. Mitchell's deception." Wilson scoffed. "That's absurd. No court would award—" "No court?" Martin interrupted. "Mr. Wilson, if this goes to court, the recording becomes evidence. It becomes public record. Are you sure that's the route your client wants to take?" The room fell silent. I watched Daniel's face as he processed the implications. His entire career, his freedom, possibly even his future with Jessica, all hanging in the balance. "I need to speak with my client privately," Wilson finally said. As they left the room, Martin turned to me. "They're going to counter. Stay firm. We have the leverage here." When Daniel and his team returned 20 minutes later, the atmosphere had shifted. Daniel wouldn't look at me directly, and Wilson's confident demeanor had diminished considerably. "We'll agree to 60% of the marital assets and $2 million in additional compensation," Wilson offered. Martin shook his head. "Not enough, and we haven't even addressed the offshore accounts yet." Daniel's head snapped up. "What are you talking about?" I leaned forward. "The Cayman accounts, Daniel. The ones you mentioned in the recording. Did you think I wouldn't understand what you were saying? I've been married to you for 7 years. I've listened to you talk about financial structures and tax strategies over dinner for years." For the first time, I saw genuine panic in Daniel's eyes. He whispered something to Wilson, who frowned deeply before addressing us again. "We need more time to consider the full implications of your proposal." Martin nodded. "You have 48 hours. After that, we'll be taking the recording to the authorities." As we prepared to leave, Daniel suddenly stood up. "Rebecca, can I speak with you? Alone?" Martin looked at me questioningly. I nodded. 5 minutes. When everyone else had left, Daniel's composed facade crumbled. "Why are you doing this?" he hissed. "You could ruin everything." "Me?" I was incredulous. "You cheated on me, lied to me, and then tried to cheat me in the divorce. You've been stealing from your clients, and you're asking why I'm doing this? I built everything we had," he said, his voice low and intense. "Everything. The house, the lifestyle, all of it. You were nothing when I met you." His words hit me like a physical blow. In that moment, I realized how little he had ever respected me, how he had always seen me as an accessory to his success, rather than a partner. "That's where you're wrong, Daniel," I said, gathering my things. "I was someone before you, and I'll be someone after you. Someone who doesn't build their life on fraud and lies." As I walked out, leaving him alone in the conference room, I felt a strange sense of liberation. The man I had loved, had built a life with, had never really existed, but I did. And for the first time in a long time, I was standing up for myself. Back at my apartment that evening, I received a text from an unknown number. "You have no idea what you're getting into. Back off now." I showed it to Martin, who immediately contacted a security firm. By midnight, I had new locks on my apartment door and a security system installed. The game had changed, and Daniel was letting me know he wouldn't go down without a fight. The next morning, I woke to pounding on my door. Through the peephole, I saw two people in suits, a man and a woman, looking official and serious. My heart raced as I opened the door cautiously, chain still in place. "Rebecca Mitchell?" the woman asked, holding up a badge. "I'm Special Agent Diane Foster with the FBI, and this is Special Agent Thomas Chen. We'd like to ask you some questions about Daniel Mitchell and Mitchell Financial Advisors." I called Martin immediately, who advised me not to say anything until he arrived. 30 minutes later, we sat in my small living room, the agents perched uncomfortably on my IKEA sofa. "How did you find out about the investigation?" Agent Foster asked directly. Martin and I exchanged glances. "What investigation?" I asked. Agent Chen leaned forward. "Mrs. Mitchell, we've been investigating your husband's firm for the past 8 months. We have reason to believe he's been operating a sophisticated fraud scheme, siphoning client funds through offshore accounts." The revelation stunned me. 8 months? So you already knew? "We had suspicions, some documentation, but building a case like this takes time," Agent Foster explained. "Then yesterday we received an anonymous tip about a recording that could be crucial evidence." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Daniel," I whispered, "he's trying to get ahead of this." Martin interjected. "My client has a recording that may be relevant to your investigation, but we need assurances about her position in all this." The next few hours were a blur of legal terms and negotiations. Martin worked to secure immunity for me in exchange for the recording and my cooperation. The agents explained that while they had been building a case against Daniel, they hadn't had enough concrete evidence to move forward with charges until now. "We believe your husband has stolen approximately $12 million from his clients over the past 5 years, Agent Chen explained. "The recording you have could be the key to recovering those funds and bringing him to justice." By the end of the day, I had signed a cooperation agreement with the FBI. In exchange for immunity from any potential charges related to benefiting from the fraud, though I truly had no knowledge of it, I would provide the recording and testify if necessary. As the agents left, Agent Foster turned back. "Mrs. Mitchell, you should know. Your husband may be aware that we're closing in. If he contacts you or tries to see you, call us immediately." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the clients Daniel had defrauded, people who had trusted him with their life savings, their retirement funds, their children's college accounts. How many lives had he damaged with his greed? At 2 a.m., my phone rang, Daniel's number. "Rebecca." His voice was slurred, either from alcohol or exhaustion. "What have you done?" "The FBI came to see me," I said calmly. "They've been investigating you for months, Daniel. This isn't about me or the divorce anymore." "You don't understand what you've set in motion," he said, his voice taking on a desperate edge. "These people I'm involved with, they're not the kind you can just walk away from." A chill ran down my spine. "What people?" "Daniel, what have you gotten yourself into?" "Some of the money, it isn't just sitting in accounts. It's been invested, leveraged. There are people expecting returns, big returns, people who don't take losses well." For the first time, I felt a flicker of fear not just for myself, but for Daniel. "You need to talk to the FBI. Make a deal. If there are dangerous people involved." "It's too late for that," he cut me off. "Just know that whatever happens next, you brought this on yourself." The line went dead. I immediately called Agent Foster, who instructed me to pack a bag and be ready to move to a secure location. Within an hour, I was being escorted to a hotel under FBI protection. The next morning, Martin arrived at the hotel with news that made my blood run cold. Daniel had emptied their joint business accounts overnight and disappeared. His assistant Jessica was cooperating with the FBI, claiming she had no knowledge of the fraud, but revealing that Daniel had been acting erratically in recent weeks, making mysterious phone calls and shredding documents. The FBI believes he's trying to flee the country, Martin explained. They've flagged his passport, but he has connections and resources. He could have fake identification. As the day progressed, the story broke in the financial press. Mitchell Financial Advisors under federal investigation for massive fraud, read the headlines. My phone exploded with calls and texts from friends, family, and even some of Daniel's clients who had somehow gotten my number. One call, from a number I didn't recognize, stopped me cold. Mrs. Mitchell? A man's voice, heavily accented, asked. Yes? Who is this? A business associate of your husband's. He owes us a considerable sum of money. We understand you have been uncooperative with his efforts to resolve certain financial matters. I signaled frantically to Agent Chen, who was in the room with me. He quickly began recording the call. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I think you do. The recording, the FBI. You've complicated things unnecessarily. The man's voice remained calm, which somehow made it more terrifying. We would like to suggest that you reconsider your position, for your own well-being. Agent Chen was already on another phone, likely trying to trace the call. Are you threatening me? I asked. Merely offering advice, Mrs. Mitchell. Your husband made commitments to us. Those commitments must be honored, one way or another. The call ended abruptly. Agent Chen looked grim. We couldn't trace it. Likely a burner phone. But this confirms our suspicions that Daniel may be involved with organized crime, possibly using client funds to make high-risk investments with criminal organizations. That night, under increased security, I lay awake wondering how my life had unraveled so completely. 6 months ago, I was planning a vacation to the Maldives with my husband. Now I was in protective custody, threatened by criminals, while Daniel was on the run. I thought about the recording that had started all of this. If I hadn't gone to his office that day, if I hadn't overheard that conversation, would I ever have known the truth? Or would I have accepted the unfair settlement, walking away with a fraction of what was rightfully mine, never knowing that the man I married was a criminal? As dawn broke, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It contained only a location, an address for a coffee shop in Cambridge, and a time, 10 a.m. Against the FBI's advice, but with their surveillance, I decided to go. I needed answers, and I had a feeling I knew who would be waiting for me. The coffee shop was busy with the morning rush, students from nearby Harvard and MIT tapping on laptops, professionals on their way to work. I sat at a corner table, a baseball cap pulled low over my face, as instructed by Agent Foster, who was positioned at the counter pretending to work on her laptop. 2 other agents were stationed outside. At exactly 10 a.m., Jessica slid into the seat across from me. Daniel's assistant and mistress looked nothing like the polished, confident woman I'd seen at company events. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her normally perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. I know you have every reason to hate me. I don't hate you, I replied honestly. I just want to understand what's happening. Jessica glanced nervously around the cafe. Daniel's in trouble. Serious trouble. Not just with the FBI. The people who called me? I guessed. She nodded. About a year ago, Daniel started taking on new clients. Wealthy individuals with cash businesses who needed to clean up their finances. At first, it was just consulting, helping them structure their businesses legitimately. But then, he started using client funds to invest for them, I finished. Yes, high-risk investments with huge potential returns. He was skimming from regular clients to cover any losses, creating a complex web of accounts. He promised these new clients 20% returns, minimum. And when he couldn't deliver? Jessica's hands trembled as she clutched her coffee cup. He got in deeper, borrowed from one group to pay another. It became a spiral. When you found the recording and the FBI got involved, everything collapsed. Where is he now? I asked. I don't know exactly, but he contacted me yesterday. She slid a phone across the table. He left this for you. Said you should listen to it alone. Agent Foster had noticed our exchange and was watching intently. I signaled that everything was okay as I took the phone. There's something else, Jessica said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Daniel kept records, detailed records of every transaction, every client, every partner. It was his insurance policy. He called it his nuclear option. If these people turned on him, he could expose them all. Where are these records? In a safe deposit box. I have the key and the location. She slid a small envelope across the table. He doesn't know I'm giving this to you, but I think you're the only one who might use it the right way. Before I could respond, Jessica stood up. I'm cooperating fully with the FBI. I've told them everything I know. But this, she nodded at the envelope, this is for you to decide what to do with. As she walked away, I felt the weight of the envelope in my hand. Inside was a key and a piece of paper with an address and box number for a bank in downtown Boston. Back at the hotel, under FBI supervision, I examined the phone Jessica had given me. There was only one audio file. With agents recording, I pressed play. Rebecca. Daniel's voice was strained, exhausted. By now you know everything. Or almost everything. The FBI, the clients, the other investors. What you don't know is why. He paused, and I could hear him take a shaky breath. It started small. A client needed help moving some money. The fee was substantial. Then another client. Bigger money, bigger fee. Before I knew it, I was in too deep to get out. These people don't take no for an answer. Another pause. I never meant for it to touch you. The divorce, the settlement offer. I was trying to protect you. If you took what I offered and walked away clean, you'd be safe. But then you found that recording. His voice hardened. You always were smarter than I gave you credit for. Too smart for your own good this time. These people know about you now. They think you have access to their money, or information that could expose them. The FBI can't protect you forever. My heart raced as his implications became clear. There's a way out, for both of us. Jessica has the key to a safe deposit box. Inside is everything. Names, dates, account numbers, recordings of meetings. Enough to bring down some very powerful people. It's my insurance policy. He took another breath. I'm offering you a deal. Use the contents of that box to negotiate with the FBI. Full immunity for both of us in exchange for everything I know. I'll surrender. Testify. Whatever they want. You get your fair share of whatever assets they don't seize, plus FBI protection. It's the only way either of us comes out of this alive. The recording ended. Agent Foster looked at me intently. We need to get that safe deposit box, she said. 2 hours later, with a court order in hand, we stood in a private room at the bank. The box contained exactly what Daniel had described. Multiple flash drives, a hard drive, notebooks filled with handwritten notes, and a letter addressed to me. As the FBI began processing the evidence, I opened the letter. Rebecca, it read. If you're reading this, you've made your choice. I hope it's the right one. Despite everything, I did love you. Not enough to be the man you deserved, but enough to try to protect you in the end. Whatever happens next, remember that. Daniel. The next week was a whirlwind of depositions, evidence reviews, and security briefings. The contents of the safe deposit box proved to be even more valuable than Daniel had suggested, implicating not just organized crime figures, but also several prominent business leaders and 2 politicians in a complex money laundering operation. Daniel surrendered to authorities at the Canadian border, thin and haggard but alive. As part of his plea deal, negotiated with my help, he provided testimony that led to dozens of arrests. In exchange, he received a reduced sentence of 12 years, instead of the potential 30 he was facing. The divorce was finalized while he was in custody. As Martin had predicted, I received a fair settlement. Not the vindictive amount we had initially demanded, but enough to restart my life comfortably. Most of Daniel's legitimate assets were seized to repay his defrauded clients, but the Cape Cod house, which had been purchased with inherited money from my grandmother, remained mine. 6 months after that fateful day in Martin's office when I first played the recording, I sat on the deck of the Cape house, watching the sunset over the water. My phone rang. Martin. It's done, he said. The last of the cases has been settled. The clients will get back about 85 cents on the dollar, which is better than anyone expected. And the threats? I asked. With the kingpins facing life sentences, the FBI believes the danger has passed. They're recommending an end to your protection detail, though they suggest remaining vigilant. After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness, thinking about how a single moment, the decision to go to Daniel's office that day, to stay when I heard him on the phone, to record what I was hearing, had changed everything. I thought about Daniel, now serving his sentence at a federal prison in Pennsylvania. We hadn't spoken since his surrender, though his lawyer had conveyed his request for a visit. I wasn't ready for that yet. Maybe someday. As for me, I was starting over. I had accepted a position with a nonprofit that helped victims of financial fraud navigate the complex process of recovery. My own experience had shown me how devastating such crimes could be, not just financially, but emotionally. The recording that had started it all was now evidence in multiple federal cases. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I had simply accepted Daniel's initial settlement offer, walked away with less than I deserved, but my life intact. Would he have eventually been caught anyway? Would those criminal investors have found another way to pressure him? Would I have ever known the truth? But then I remembered Martin's face when he first heard Daniel's voice confessing to his crimes. "This changes everything," he had said, and it had. Not just the divorce settlement, not just Daniel's fate, but my understanding of myself and what I was capable of. I had stood up against threats and intimidation. I had helped bring down a criminal enterprise. I had found strength I never knew I possessed. As darkness fell over the Cape, I made a promise to myself. The past year had been defined by Daniel's actions, by his crimes and lies, but my future would be defined by my own choices, my own strength. The recording had changed everything. But in the end, it wasn't the recording that had saved me. I had saved myself.